Hello and welcome to The Curators, a podcast about game projects on Kickstarter. I'm Joey.
And I'm Marcelo. You can find all the games from this episode as well as plenty of others at our curated page at kickstarter.com/gamerati.
You can also find links to each of these projects in the show notes of this episode at thecurators.gamerati.com. If you're a backer of any of the projects, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at thecurators@gamerati.com. Tell us why you're backing any of these projects, and we may feature your email on the podcast. So we're only doing like one each now.
Yeah,
pretty
but
much.
The length of the podcasts is not like hadn't diminished.
Not really, no. We're very
started
talky.
talking more.
But I think that this is kind of nice because honestly, there's a lot of stuff on our curated page, or not necessarily on our curated page right now, but there's a lot of games that I kind of would like to talk about, but I don't have a whole lot of super positive things to say, or maybe this would be interesting to talk about why they're not funded yet, but I don't like doing that whole negativity thing. I think that this still works out because there are listeners out there who want a little bit more opinion on things that aren't, that are kind of more leaning towards why a specific project may be super great or why they're relaunching or something like that. I mean, you're free to email us, obviously, with opinions on the podcast, so I'd love to hear from any of our listeners. But I am going to bring a game that I think actually looks really cool. And I say actually because generally I don't back CMON projects at all. I'm not a huge miniatures guy. I'm not big on the painting. The only CMON games I've actually played are Zombicide and Blood Rage, and I'm not a huge fan of Blood Rage, and Zombicide it just took forever, and it just wasn't my thing, but I know that CMON's really, really popular, and I really like the theme of Trudvang Legends, or Trudvang, I don't know how to pronounce that. This is a cooperative game that is kind of, I feel like it's not at all like CMON's normal cooperative games. So I haven't played all of them, obviously. They have 38 created just under this name alone. They're older ones, obviously. There were dozens before this, but I've never played Cthulhu Death May Die. I believe that one's cooperative. I never played Hate, which I think that one was not cooperative. There was a lot of others, though, that I never really got into. I'm scrolling through them now, besides Zombicide, just because it wasn't, I don't know, for the most part I think they kind of priced me out for a lot of their stuff. I never really got the ability to back a bunch of their things because they're just so expensive, and that's not because they're not making great games. They're making great games, but $100 a box is a little bit much for me to really dive hard into just their games. This one has kind of like a legacy component that I really want to talk about that I think is something that I feel dumb for not thinking of this as a legacy concept, because this isn't the first time I've seen pouches on a board, but this game has little card pouches so that you can put cards into a section of the board. You can kind of see it on the video if you're watching the video. They're basically little square cards. They're not rectangles like a normal set. They're square, and they kind of alter the board with story as the game progresses, and then when you fold up the board, they just stay in their pouch. And it's not like a big deal. You're not adding stickers, you're not adding permanent things, you're not marking stuff off, you're not ripping things up, but it still has that legacy kind of idea. I think it's really interesting. Actually, I think there was only one other game that I had seen that had pouches in it, which was Mysterium, but that wasn't like a legacy game. It just had pouches for you to accumulate clues, I think, for the people that are trying to guess the cards you're thinking of. And this just makes a ton of sense. I think it's really cool. There was also a really fun anti-dice mechanic that I like, where you have a little bag full of runes, and in order to do anything really, there's like a set of runes that you have to pull from your bag, and so you try to construct your bag full of the runes that you think you're going to need, and then when you're tasked with pulling a certain amount of them, you're trying to get the ones that you need to overcome the obstacle. So you need, let's say, well, in this particular challenge, you have to attack something, and they have a strength of 1 water, 1 fire, 1 earth, and 1 wind rune, and you have a specific ability that basically dictates that you are pulling 5 runes, so you need to get those 4 that I've described plus any other one, I guess, and hopefully you've gotten a success out of that. And I think that's kind of a fun way to do this that also works with the Norse theme, the Viking theme that they're going with. And I think that it's a fun alternative to dice, because for me, dice is not really my favorite mechanic. Mainly when, and I've said this 1,000 times on the podcast, it's only when the dice keep you from doing your action. One of the bigger games that does this is like Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror. They have a tendency to, you go to attack, or you go to find a clue or something, and so you roll your dice, and did you do it? Nope. Well, you wasted your turn because the dice said no. Not a fan of that myself. But other games that use that mechanic, like, well, actually Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror are both really fantastic games I still like in spite of that mechanic, but I really like seeing games that want to do something slightly different. I think that that's more to the credit of this game than dice would add for me. Everything else in this game is super gorgeous, of course, because it is CMON, so all of the minis are beautiful, the map is absolutely gorgeous, all of the artwork is really good looking. And if we scroll back up to the top, we'll see that they're now at 1,051,000. And if I just hover here for like a few seconds, I'm sure it'll pop up by another $100 just as we're watching, because this is consistently moving, as all CMON projects do. They're just crazy with how many people want to back these projects. $100 is the only pledge level, and it just gets you everything that you need for the game. I don't think they have any actual expansions planned yet. You are getting all kinds of great things, and they are constantly unlocking new minis and new stuff, so it just comes with the game. It's not like going to be a part of an expansion you have to pay extra for. They're waiting to get like an undead giant, which looks really cool. Let's see, the shipping, they're estimating $15 for most states, for most of the US, 30 to 42 in most countries in the EU, which is actually pretty understandable. I'm surprised to see those prices. Like, shipping has gone up significantly lately, and I've been noticing that with a lot of these campaigns, they're being very realistic about shipping. If you're spending $100 on a game and you're paying $30 for shipping, you should know that that's actually normal. If you're paying like $8 for shipping from like Amazon, then you're probably getting it from like a depot that's nearby. But to do fulfillment on this kind of a scale in this sort of climate, I guess, the actual shipping costs are very high nowadays, and I think that this is realistic. I'm looking at this because I'm thinking of, I think it was District 9, and it was made by Weta Workshop, the guys that also did the huge robots, or giant robots. Do you remember that campaign?
Yeah.
And I think, well, for the District 9 one, they were quoting like $50 in shipping. And a lot of people were like, this is insane. I'm not paying $50 for shipping. But like, you look down at the EU, and there's $50 to Switzerland and Norway and Jersey. Although Jersey's a little tiny island, I think you're going to have to be used to that if you live in Jersey. There's a whole lot of just extra costs that I think a lot of people aren't willing to understand that this actually does incur. And we're so used to seeing old Kickstarters that said, oh, free shipping, and we just baked it into the price of the game, and that was easy, and it's not so much anymore. So if you're interested in this new CMON game, and I am, but I'm probably not able to actually afford it, then you're going to have to expect at least $115 total if you live in the US, but it could be a little bit more expensive if you're living somewhere else.
So, my game is also above $1 million in pledges, just like Trudvang Legends. It's BattleTech Clan Invasion by Catalyst Game Labs. I hesitated.
You hesitated? Wait, no, that's perfect. This is on a hex board. BattleTech plays on a hex board, and you hesitated.
I was avoiding talking about this project, thinking about talking or not talking about this project, because it's seriously, Catalyst doesn't need our support. But I have a history with BattleTech and MechWarrior. I remember playing as a kid with one of my friends from school. He came back from Germany and he bought a couple of boxes full of maps and paper miniatures. You know, those triangle with the miniatures printed on it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was love at first sight. I fell in love with BattleTech, and then there was the Microsoft games, and then FASA went under, and then somebody rescued the franchise, and then I learned English and I started reading the novels. Because BattleTech and MechWarrior has a huge history of expanded universe novels, just like Star Wars and Star Trek and Mass Effect. More than 100 novels so far, I believe, spanning the century, the 27th century, all the way to 3450, the year. There's a lot of stuff here, and it's a long story, convoluted story of total war in the galaxy. There's no aliens here. I think it was the first time I saw a sci-fi setting that there's no aliens, just people, just humans. Not that, I'm sorry, aliens, you are people too, but I'm talking about humans. And recently, Catalyst Game Labs has released a RPG a couple of years ago, A Time of War, which is very good and defocus the mech warrior. You have other classes and other types of stories. It's still in the idea of the total war in the galaxy. But then, I believe it was last year, they decided to get back to basics and launched a beginner box with simple, streamlined rules for playing the miniature game. And that's kind of a niche inside of our niche of people who play board games, because even like most people who like board games, they get a little miffed by miniature games. I have a lot of miniatures from the Dark Ages. So I believe I have 4 drawers full of pre-colored plastic miniatures from the time WizKids had the license, which was MechWarrior Dark Age and then Age of Destruction. Nobody wants to play with me because those are very long, complex games. Every MechWarrior, every group of soldiers has its own character sheet, practically. It's just like you're playing an RPG, a mass combat RPG. But I still love the very idea of mechas, gigantic robots, and the fact that they are coming back to a very important period in the BattleTech lore, which is the clan invasion. So the clans, they disappeared from the sphere of influence of humanity after a betrayal. It's a very long, complex, interesting story. I'm not going to tell anything about it this year, but they went away. The clans felt betrayed after their leader was killed, and they disappeared. They went to the far corners of the galaxy. After a couple of decades, living in kind of a samurai style of living, they came back. Very powerful, very technologically advanced, because they have been preparing for war all these years, all these decades. And now they invade. One of my favorite mechas of all time, which is the Mad Cat. Actually, it's called the Timber Wolf. But
Dude,
it's
get in line. That is everyone's favorite.
Really? Oh, cool.
I think so. It is absolutely my favorite. I think it is the most coolest looking design, the Timberwolf, and I remember it as a Mad Cat as well. And my first introduction into the BattleTech universe was MechWarrior 2 from Activision, I think, way back in the day.
Yeah, I started playing with 4 already with Microsoft. That people say it's not very good, but I hadn't a computer to play 1, 2, and 3 before. But it was still fun enough. So this is an intermediate level box. So if you already have the beginner box, it's time for you to get BattleTech Clan Invasion. But the pledge levels also have a $20 pledge level for you to get the beginner box instead of the Kickstarter for Clan Invasion. And if you want the Clan Invasion, you have to fork out $50, which I'm surprised it isn't more expensive, although this is the very vanilla pledge level. If you really want everything, you have to fork out at least $95. Comes with everything that comes with the other ones, the free short story, a Clan Challenge coin, the Clan Invasion box set, and 2 Star/Lance packs you choose at the time of shipping. They believe you'll be shipping March 2020. So the base box comes with the 5 miniatures, the Executioner, Timberwolf, or Mad Cat, as we knew back then, Nova, Grendel, and the Adder. All very well, at least for the 3D renders they're showing us, very well tooled. They're using the most current technology to make highly detailed miniatures. They're plastic and they are not painted. There's an add-on for metal versions, which I think is a little crazy. But they're not painted. You can paint them if you want or not. They're very distinct. Then it comes with 6-sided dice, primer booklet, rule book, the character sheet for every battle mech, a novella, also a short story in digital format, pilot cards, strike cards, reference card, game maps, and the terrains in format of punchboard tiles. There's also the perfect add-on, in my opinion, which are play mats made of neoprene. They come rolled, just like a map tube from a war, from World War II or something like that. Man, there's too much. They wanted, I believe, $200,000. Let's see here. They wanted $30,000. They're above $1 million. They had to make up 4 different new waves of stretch goals. They ended the wave 1, then they have to make the wave 2, and then 3, and then I believe they're on wave 5 right now. They have to make up stuff left and right because this Kickstarter is very, very successful. Let's see where they are here. Wave 6. I stretch goal 6, 7. Oh my God. 10. Well, I've reached the end here. Wave 10 of stretch goals. Oh man, they are having to be very creative with the next stretch goals. It's only it's been what, less than a week?
Oh yeah, no, they have tons of time left.
Yeah.
I have a very mixed love for BattleTech because I love the design of all of the mechs. I really loved the idea of playing BattleTech or Mech Warrior when it was a video game. I haven't really gotten into the newest Mech Warrior games that are available. I know you can get it on Steam, and I know it's one of those where you will have to unlock certain mechs and you have to unlock the ability to play in certain classes, and it's very team heavy, and I'm not a huge fan of how the game works. It's very much a pilot sim, but it's also not really, and you have to manage like weapon groupings and whatnot. I think as far as video games were concerned, I think that Mech Assault was actually a lot of fun. It was very much trimmed down and a little bit not what people wanted when it came out to what they wanted from BattleTech, and I think that it was fun for a lark, but it wasn't like a really great BattleTech game. There was a game on the Xbox called Chrome Hounds that was really good, and it definitely sought to recreate old school BattleTech. But then when we're talking about BattleTech in a miniatures world, I just can't get behind the dice mechanic again. But the design is so cool. I love the Timberwolf. My other favorites are the Nova, the Marauder, and the Nova and the Marauder are actually in this particular set. That you can pick up. The Raven is also one of my favorites, and I also really like the Catapult is one of my other favorites, which I don't think the Catapult's in this one.
It's interesting that you quoted those two because according to the lore, when the clans invaded, because the Timberwolf is a mecha from the Wolf clan.
Right.
And it seems to be a mix of the engineering of the design of the Marauder and the Catapult.
Right.
So the system of the first people who battled the Timberwolf on the battlefield kept alternating the ID between Mad and Cat for Marauder and Catapult. It was identifying specs of both mechas. So that's why they are called the Mad Cat.
Nice.
And I remember something that by the way, the Steam video game, what I like about it, it's because it's from the original designers of the very first BattleTech from Faza times. Robert Weissman, I believe he's called. He's from Seattle. He's from near you. And I love it because it's complex, and it's exactly why nobody wants to play with me.
Yeah. I've only played it a handful of times. I played the BattleTech. I've played it like twice, and the actual combats, we only did like one mech versus one mech. It still took a long time to actually finish out, and I had a superior ranged mech that I could shoot behind me, essentially. I could rotate and shoot behind me. So the other mech that was really fast and kept trying to hit my back just couldn't actually stop getting hit by me. So it just was like, okay, but I've got this, so, and I've won, but we still had to pull like 6 or 7 rounds. And then we played the RPG, and the RPG was like, it was cool, but it was just in that world, and I don't mind the world. It was just not, I don't know, it still had the same, die 6 rules. Nothing was overtly special about it. If you didn't already love the BattleTech universe, then you weren't really going to be interested in the RPG in the first place. And I was kind of lukewarm about it, so the RPG didn't like tip me over the side, is all I was saying. But like, there's so much about BattleTech and MechWarrior that I love. I really liked the video game Mech Commander, which saw you commanding a lance and doing it like an RTS. Like, you wouldn't actually build buildings and create new mechs or anything like that. You actually just commanded a lance, RTS style, and it was really difficult, but it was a really fun game, and I remember liking that one a lot. And I felt like this version of BattleTech that we're looking at, that is what it sought to emulate, and I think that if you have the patience for a game like this, then, dude, it is one of the best tactical games out there. But man, I want to love it more than I do, and I would love to back this at the big level. I mean, honestly, I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and I think everyone should see some of the add-ons, because you can get a $60 metal Timberwolf statue that's 3.5 inches tall. Like, dude, it is so cool. And you can also get a Warhammer, which is another really iconic mech.
Games of BattleTech, you have to use an entire table, and it's going to take you the entire afternoon. It's for that kind of hardcore gamer.
Especially if you're doing a full lance.
Yeah. And I used to play sometimes with a guy who he loved Axis and Allies. So he was used to spending the whole afternoon of Saturday just setting up a game, but he moved, so I never found anybody else to play with me. I wasn't really interested when Catalyst started releasing BattleTech stuff. First, because I didn't have anybody to play with me, and second, because I was really in love with the system that WizKids made. The cards, the streamlined way of playing with the mechas. But I want to see what they did. I don't have the beginner box, but I'm going to pledge on this, on the basic level, $50, just to get the base Clan Invasion box and see what they're doing. I doubt I won't like it, but if I don't, I know I can resell here in Brazil, because there are people in larger cities that still play the old BattleTech. I started playing, I just remember something. There was a kind of copyright kerfuffle, because one of the versions of the boxes, they came with the pretty much Valkyries. Those mechas that, like Robotech mechas, that convert from ships to robots. And they had to eliminate that and pretend it doesn't exist. Because they didn't have the license from Macross. What we call here in the West, Robotech. But I still remember my Valkyrie that was destroyed. Okay, so that was BattleTech Clan Invasion. They needed only 30,000. They already over 1 million with 23 days to go. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff yet from Catalyst Game Labs. It's their Kickstarter curated page. Next week, I promise you guys, we get back to indie projects. But today was the day of the big projects, the over $1 million projects.
All right, so that's it for another episode of the show. If you have any questions about the games we featured, or if you'd like us to consider a game on the podcast, feel free to email us at thecurators@gamerati.com, and we will answer you on the podcast.
You can also reach Joey and myself on Twitter and Facebook at Gamerati. The show notes for this episode and all our episodes are at thecurators.gamerati.com. You can also find The Curators on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.
And don't forget to check out our curated page at kickstarter.com/Gamerati. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/Gamerati. Turns out we can talk about BattleTech for days, even though we rarely play it.
I'm pleasantly surprised.
Right?